Today we're going to break down something pretty amazing. How a school, De La Salle Zobel, pulled off a massive digital transformation. And trust me, their story is basically a masterclass for any leader trying to drive real change.
You know, it's a question every leader asks, right? How do you really innovate with technology? Is it just about throwing the newest gadgets at a problem, or is there something deeper going on? Well, as we're about to see, the secret weapon has nothing to do with the hardware.
And this quote right here, it absolutely nails it. Their digital transformation didn't kick off when the iPad showed up. Nope. It started with a culture of imagination, of reinvention. The groundwork, the real work, was done long before a single box was opened. This was never a tech project. It was always a people project. So to really get how they pulled this off, we got to rewind a bit. Because the story of Deals' success with the iPad doesn't start in 2012. It actually starts decades before, laying the foundation piece by piece.
Just look at this. It's pretty wild, right? We're talking about a 30-year journey of constant adaptation, from slide projectors back in the 80s to overheads in the 90s, then desktops, and finally multimedia projectors in every single classroom. What they were doing, maybe without even realizing it, was building up this change muscle. And believe me, they were going to need it.
But that foundation, that change muscle, was about to face its biggest challenge yet. Because a new tool was coming, and it wasn't just another projector. It was something that would expose a huge, deeply human gap, the one between generations.
And here it is, the moment everything changed. In 2012, the school's leadership makes this incredibly bold call. DLSZ is going to be the very first Lasallian school to go all in on iPads. We're not talking about a small pilot program. We're talking about a complete overhaul of, well, everything. And this, right here, is where the rubber meets the road. It perfectly captures the core problem. You've got the teachers, the digital migrants, who are anxious, maybe a little intimidated. They're reading every single word of the manual, treating the iPad like it's a priceless artifact. And then you have the students, the digital natives, who just grab it and start tapping away, exploring without a second thought. That gap, that was the real challenge.
So how in the world do you bridge a gap that wide? Well, it wasn't by accident, that's for sure. It was all by design. What came next was this massive, behind-the-scenes effort, a detailed blueprint that would make or break the entire thing.
And this was their secret weapon, the ABCDEF framework. I love this because it's so simple but so powerful. They knew they couldn't just focus on B, broadband and devices. That's what most people do. They knew they also needed A for administrative policies, C for curriculum, D for development, E for the right environment, and of course F for funding. They looked at the whole picture.
And when we say they looked at the whole picture, we mean it. The scale of this prep work is just staggering. We're talking huge infrastructure upgrades for bandwidth, digitizing the entire library, creating a loaner program so a broken iPad didn't mean a lost day of learning. They even trained students to be peer ambassadors to help their teachers. This was so much more than just handing out devices. It was transforming the entire ecosystem.
Okay, so what's amazing is that DLSZ's story isn't just a one-off. Their success lines up perfectly with some really solid, universal principles of leadership. Let's actually map what they did to Apple's own elements of leadership to see how it all fits.
All right, first up, vision. They had a clear North Star. It wasn't let's use iPads. It was let's create meaningful learning. See the difference? Then, culture. They knew people would be resistant. That's just human nature. So they ran pilot tests, found their champions, and supported everyone else with real empathy. And capacity? This is huge. They invested like crazy in their people. International experts, summer workshops, you name it. And it doesn't stop there. Next is team. Leadership wasn't some directive from on high. It was spread out, with everyone from the exec committee to those student ambassadors having a role. Then, community. They made sure parents, students, and even other schools were part of the journey. And finally, measurement. They didn't just hope it was working. They used real data, from teacher assessments to learning analytics, to prove it and get better. So, after all that, all the planning, the prep, the strategy, what's the payoff? What does it actually look like in a classroom at DLSC today?
Well, it started simply enough. The first step was really just integrating the device. Using the iPad as a kind of digital textbook. That was the starting line.
But that was just the beginning. The real goal, the true vision, was always something much bigger. It was about moving to a true learning transformation.
It was about changing the very act of teaching and learning.
And this is what that looks like in the real world. We're not just talking about cool apps. We're talking about entirely new ways of teaching. Things like station rotation models, personalized learning playlists for each student, flipped classrooms, even augmented reality simulations and robotics. The tech didn't replace the teacher. It gave them superpowers.
So when you look at the whole DLSC story, you realize it's not just some interesting case study. It's really a call to action. It's a blueprint that almost any leader can use to drive real, meaningful change in their own world.
And if you want just one piece of data to sum up their success, look at this. 192. That's how many certified Apple teachers they have. That number doesn't happen by accident. That is the direct result of their massive investment in building up their team's capacity.
And this quote, I think, just captures the whole spirit of it. Rise is not just about standing up. It is about moving forward and lifting others along the way. It's about community. It's about bringing everyone with you.
Because in the end, this story proves one thing beyond a doubt. It was never really about the devices. It was always about the leadership that knew how to unlock their potential. And that leaves all of us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? What will you transform next?